Today, we're going to look at 4 photographs, 2 of portraits and 2 of a group photo. And we're going to compare them so we can learn about photography techniques and what makes a strong photograph. These are photographs that I took, but I'd be very happy to critique your photographs as well. Just drop me a DM in my Instagram. I have a link in the description below. We're starting off with these pictures that I took of Doron and Shelley Peretz. I had the privilege of photographing them at a cricket game, which was arranged in honor of his son Daniel, who was tragically killed during the Hamas invasion of Israel on October 7th. Daniel had been an avid cricket player, and many who knew him came to play or watch as a small act of keeping his memory alive. These photos are clearly different in that one is landscape oriented and the other is portrait. Now, when it comes to photographing subjects, any subject, typically the shape or orientation of the subject is what's going to determine the way you hold your camera. So for portraits, for people standing, for people fill the frame top to bottom, so a portrait orientation makes more sense. And in fact, that's probably why they call it portrait orientation, versus landscape orientation, when it's horizontal like this, is more fitting for, guess what? Landscapes. However, that being said, sometimes it makes sense to shoot a portrait of people in landscape. And one of the big reasons for that would be the background considerations, such as giving context where they are. In this example of a portrait shot in landscape format, it clearly is not working because, first of all, the background has a basketball hoop, which has nothing to do with cricket, so that's not so helpful. Also, we have on this side the very bright building. Over here, this bag. We have a little guy over here as well, and part of a person maybe over here. There's a lot of things going on in the background. They are clearly just distracting and have nothing to do with the people. Contrast that with a photo taken a second later in portrait mode, and you see that we've eliminated a lot of the distracting background and made the focus the couple, right? There still is this person in the back over here. Maybe there's a second person now. I see his leg sticking in there. We can Photoshop that out. And over here, the bag, that would be something I'd do in Photoshop. And then this bag also, get rid of all those little things. But they're very minor compared to over here. In this picture, there's a lot more that is clearly distracting from the view. On the good side, what I like about both pictures have a lot of positives going on as far as this couple. First of all, there is really lovely eye contact. Look at them looking straight at the camera. Beautiful, really. And actually between these two, I think this one, his eyes are a little bit better. Here, maybe he looks a little bit tired or something. Not really, but I just caught him slightly off. However, here, I think these eyes here are really great. Smiles all around, really nice smiles. They look natural, not forced. When I'm taking portrait photography, I really want to capture the people and their personality, and this really does it for me. Another thing that's going really well here, I believe, are their hands, the way their hands are positioned, right? We got the good body contact where they're holding each other, showing this connection between them, and their hands are hanging loosely at the sides. It doesn't look like they're being awkward. Very often people wonder what to do with their hands. Sometimes I'll tell them to put their hand in their pocket and stick their thumb out if that's a possibility. But over here, it just works really well. We have also, it's not exactly mirror image, which I like. He's holding her shoulder, and then she's holding around his waist. So it's a little bit of a variation going here. They don't look like carbon copies of each other. Additionally, I also like the position of their heads. I believe there's a slight tilt going to each of her for sure, him maybe a little less so, but they're not staying straight up, robotic, or too stiff. So it again shows this naturalness and comfortability that comes through in this photo, which I like a lot. Another thing I like is how they're dressed. They're both wearing very strong, vibrant colored shirts, and that helps set them apart from the background, right? We want the subject to be our couple here, and it's clearly easier to spot them if they're wearing things that don't match the background. So here, these colors are very good. I mean, we have this, maybe in this scene, we have the blue of the basketball hoop matches his shirt a little bit, but still, it's I like this picture better, as we said. So we're okay. Right? Anyway, though, it is important when posing your subjects or when arranging to meet with subjects that they should have clothing that helps them stand out from the background. And the last thing that I want to point out that I like about here is the shallow depth of field that helps them also stand out from the background. As you can see, they are much more in focus than the background. And just for the EXIF information here, we could see that this was shot at 5.6 f-stop, which I could have shot that more shallow, honestly, but anyway, they're so far from the background that it would be that 5.6 is very decent for blurring things out. Now, that said, this bag, had I shot this at 2.8 or something, so maybe we would have gotten away with that bag in the background and it would have been blurred out more and not be as distracting. But as it is, it's something that it is something we could Photoshop out or just go with this picture. The next set of photos I want to look at are this scene of a speaker addressing a crowd. So now I'll say that while neither of these photos are things I'd submit to a photo competition, there still is actually a lot we can learn when we compare these photos. I actually have a very clear winner in my mind, and I'd like you just to take a moment to review these two photos and look for yourself what you think might be a picture that stands out more than the other. So we have this one here, we'll call that picture number 1, and we have this picture here, we'll call that picture number 2. So just take a moment and look at these two pictures, think about what you like about them, compositionally or anything else, and think about why one might have an advantage over another one. Ready? So here's what I have to say about these pictures. First, let's just talk about the story of the pictures, right? In this picture over here, this picture on the left, picture number 1, I think this scene is more about the speaker and the group. And this one, it's about the speaker, more about the speaker. Also, you'll notice that there's a sun flare that happens to be right around where his head is, and that is giving a lot of focus to him. Now, comparing these two pictures as far as compositionally, let's start with this picture. In this picture, as far as the angle of the shot, you can see it's shot at a slight angle, right? I'm standing just behind and I want to capture him and the crowd, so there's a little angle going on over here. If we compare it with the picture number 1, you'll see the angle is much more dramatic, right? It has this sweeping angle compared to the other one, which I think, comparing the two, gives this picture number 1 a much more energetic, dynamic life to it. Also, if you compare where the speaker is standing, in this picture over here, he's in this green area that is very much cut off from the rest of the photo, right? We have everything going on here, and then suddenly this green jutting out and him in it. Almost like he's like in a different plane, or maybe we call it a penalty box since we're talking about sports. Versus if we look at this picture, there is also this area that is separate from the rest, but it's much larger, and it's sort of balanced. Like this green area is balanced with this red area, and then the yellow stone area over here. So I don't see it as him standing in a separate reality or whatever. I see more of a unity between all the different parts here. Also, this angle I feel really works with the photo because it matches this line, these leading lines. This brings us to our speaker, this runs through the people, and then we have this building which runs us back into the people. So we have this little zigzag going on here, this in the back, and this works with it very nicely. But over here on this picture, we don't have so many leading lines. There's really not, I mean, this line is very abrupt. It just stops here, and you can't say it leads the eye anywhere, just out of the picture, if anything, right? There's nothing to bring us back in. So that's another reason why I think this picture is working a lot better for me. Speaking about the background, if we compare, we have in this scene, the background is made up of a lot of trees and buildings, and I find that the trees have these sharp triangular shapes which draw the eye. They're also quite dark and vibrant. The color is very rich, which is again makes them stand out, sort of like the shirts did in the previous picture of our couple. But over here, the subject isn't the trees. Our subject is supposed to be these people here. So I think that's a little bit of distraction. Similarly, we have these buildings over here, which are an assortment of random shapes in the background, which also don't really help in the overall reading of this photo. When we compare that with this photo, though, we have a tree over here, which angles down to this person here, and then we have a little circular area over here where the tree and the building combine. And as we already mentioned before, this building does a fantastic job of guiding the eye back into the picture because it's basically a strong plane at this angle, and it complements the angle and lines that are happening over here. So I think that works out really well. Another thing to talk about are the people themselves. So in this picture, we see that we have the people, but they get cut off here, right? So that's not really so great. I mean, it could be interpreted that there's a very large crowd, which maybe, you know, you want to show, wow, there's so many people here. I have no idea when this crowd ends. But from the amount of people that I see here, I'm not getting that feeling that this goes on forever. It's not like a picture that I'd say, oh, wow, this goes on and on. This picture does capture all the people who were sitting in the stands. And so there's a feeling of closure, I think, because we have space on this side, space on this side. We don't feel like we're missing anything. So it's not leading the eye out of the frame like this one perhaps is just dark black right over there in the corner. Another thing also is in this picture, right in the middle, specifically right in the middle of the picture, is this guy who's touching his cap and blocking his face. So again, when you're dealing with how many people are here, 30? I don't know. It's a lot of people. There's really no way to coordinate everyone, especially since I wasn't posing them at all, right? Well, here's someone tying his shoe even. Look at that. So anyway, though, when you're taking pictures like this, a lot is a little bit the chance of the moment. But this guy with his hand blocking his face is distracting it takes away from the connection to the speaker, right? So that's not so good. In this other picture, we do have a few people who aren't looking at the speaker, like this guy over here perhaps, and who else was there? This guy looking that way, right? But in general, there's no one who stands out as not looking at the speaker to distract you so much, right? So there's still this, so I think it works much better over here. So between these two pictures, hopefully after I've went through all those different explanations, you can understand why I prefer the one on the left much more than one on the right. I'd love to hear your comments and what you think their strengths and weaknesses are. You can leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to respond. And if you've enjoyed this photo critique, then check out my book, Composition Techniques to Create Compelling Photos. Chock full of examples and practical exercises, you'll learn how you can take your photography from good to great. It's available both as a paperback and digital download on Amazon. I'll leave links in the description below. Thanks again so much for watching, and I look forward to reading your comments and seeing you in another video.